The rain hits the pavement like loose change, clattering against the concrete. It's midnight in the city of industry, and the streetlights are flickering, struggling to illuminate the mess on the sidewalk. I've seen a lot of ugly things in this town, but this is a cold-blooded murder. We found the body slumped against a brick wall in the alleyway behind Main Street. The ID in the wallet says the American middle class, but looking at the face, you wouldn't recognize him. Gaunt, tired, looking 20 years older than the birth date suggests. I crouch down to get a closer look. The pockets are turned inside out, flapping in the wind. Empty. Not a dime left. Whoever did this didn't just rob him. They stripped him clean and left him to bleed out in the gutter. The medical examiner says the wounds are deep. Malnutrition from affordable food that isn't really food, stress fractures from working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. The cause of death wasn't sudden. It was a slow, agonizing suffocation. I look up at the skyscrapers looming over us. The lights are on in the penthouses. They're having a party up there. Champagne popping, music blaring. Down here, all I hear is the siren of an ambulance that's going to cost $3,000 just for the ride. There's a receipt crumpled in the victim's hand. I pry it loose. It's for rent. The number is astronomical. It's more than half of what this guy made in a month. He was paying for the privilege of a roof while the walls were closing in. Next to the body, there's a graph. It looks like a blood splatter pattern, but it's productivity data. The line goes straight up. This guy was working harder than ever, producing more than his father or grandfather ever did. But then I look at the other line on the chart. Wages. It's flat. A flat line since the early 70s. He was running a marathon on a treadmill, sweating blood, and going absolutely nowhere. Someone severed the link between hard work and fair pay. It wasn't an accident. You don't accidentally disconnect a trillion-dollar fuel line. This was a precision cut. Surgical. I stand up and wipe the rain from my eyes. The official report is going to call this natural causes. They'll say he didn't upskill enough or he bought too many lattes. They love blaming the victim in this city. But I know a hustle when I see one. Look at the footprints leading away from the scene. They aren't work boots. They're Italian leather loafers, custom made. The kind that cost a month's salary for the guy on the ground. The bystanders are walking past, heads down, staring at their phones. They're too scared to look. They know they're next. They're clutching their wallets tight, hoping the invisible thief doesn't notice them. I check the victim's watch. It stopped ticking 40 years ago. That's the real time of the crime. We've just been watching the corpse walk around, pretending it was alive, fueled by credit cards and cheap debt. Speaking of debt, it's scattered everywhere like shell casings. Student loans, car notes, medical bills. High-interest shackles designed to keep him running until his heart gave out. This wasn't just a robbery. It was an extraction. They siphoned the value out of his labor like vampires draining a vein. And they did it right out in the open, under the guise of economic growth. I light a cigarette to cover the smell of decay. The smoke curls up into the neon sign above the alley. Opportunity, it flickers. The O is burned out. Now it just reads P-Porunity. A fitting. I kick a piece of debris. It's a brochure for a retirement plan. A 401k that was supposed to be a golden parachute. Now it looks more like a paper napkin with a hole in it. The forensic team is packing up. They don't care. To them, it's just another statistic. Another casualty of the free market. But I take it personally. I knew this guy when he had dreams. I look at the skyline one last time. The glass towers reflect the misery down here, distorting it, making it look small. They think they got away with it. They think no one noticed the trillions missing from the ledger. I pull my collar up against the chill. I'm not closing this file. I'm going to find out where that money went. I'm going to follow the trail of gold, dust right to the front door of the people who stole the future. I drag the first suspect into the interrogation room and slam a calendar on the table. August 1971. That's when the timeline breaks. Before that date, money was anchored to gold. Afterward, it became a ghost, untethered, floating on promises and politicians' handshakes. The suspect, let's call him Fiat, doesn't sweat. He knows he's slippery. When the gold standard died, the government gave themselves a blank check. They could print their way out of problems, but every new bill they printed stole a fraction of a penny from your pocket. I tape a dollar bill to the two-way mirror. It looks innocent enough, doesn't it? But it's a shapeshifter. In the 50s, this piece of paper bought you a decent lunch. Today, it barely buys the wrapper. That's not an accident. It's a slow-motion heist. Enter the second suspect, inflation. He's the silent partner in this racket. He doesn't break into your house with a crowbar. He picks the lock while you're sleeping. He smiles at you from the grocery aisle, shrinking the packages while raising the price tags. I ask him where the value went. He points to the Consumer Price Index, a rigged scoreboard designed to hide the truth. They swap out steak for hamburger in the data and tell you the cost of living hasn't changed. It's gaslighting on a national scale. Then there's the big guy in the corner, wearing a suit that costs more than your car. The central bank. He's the one controlling the printing press. He floods the streets with cheap cash, but the water doesn't flow evenly. It's called the Cantillon effect. The money flows to the insiders first, the banks, the corporations, the hedge funds. By the time it trickles down to your paycheck, it's diluted You're drinking the backwash of the economy. I pull out a photo of a house from the evidence box. A modest place, nothing fancy. 50 years ago, a single income could buy it in 3 years. Now, it's a 30-year sentence of debt slavery. The housing market sits there, looking bloated and smug. He's not about shelter anymore. He's a speculative asset. Wall Street started buying up neighborhoods, turning the American dream into a rental portfolio. They pulled up the ladder and set it on fire. I pace around the room. The air is thick with smoke and lies. They tell us wages stagnated because of global competition. And sure, that's part of it. But look at the corporate profits. They didn't stagnate. They skyrocketed. I slam a chart of productivity against the wall. The workers got more efficient. We built better machines, wrote faster code, moved more product. We did our part. But the surplus value didn't go to the worker. It went in stock buybacks. That's a neat trick. Instead of giving you a raise, the company uses its profits to buy its own stock, driving up the price for the shareholders. It's financial cannibalism, eating the company's future to feed the executives. Then there's the technology excuse. They say robots took the money. I don't buy it. Technology is supposed to make things cheaper. If machines are doing the work, shouldn't life be easier? Instead, we're working longer hours just to compete with the algorithms. I look at the debt suspect again. Credit cards. They act like a lifeline, but they're a noose. When wages stopped growing, they handed us plastic to fill the gap. Keep spending, they said. Don't worry about the interest. It was a perfect trap. They replaced income with debt. You feel rich because you can buy a flat-screen TV, but you don't own your life. The bank owns it at 24% APR. I lean in close to the policymaker. He's been looking the other way for decades. Deregulation, tax cuts for the top, austerity for the bottom. He wrote the rules of the game to ensure the house always wins. They created a system where capital earns more than labor. Money makes money while you sleep but work. Work barely keeps you awake. If you don't have assets, you're just fuel for the machine. The suspects are all looking at each other, winking. They know they're untouchable. They hid the crime in complex derivatives and confusing jargon so the average guy wouldn't realize he was being robbed until it was too late. I gather my notes. The fingerprints are everywhere. The printing press, the policy shifts, the corporate greed. It wasn't just one bad actor. It was a syndicate. A coordinated effort to transfer wealth from the many to the few. I turn off the recorder. The interrogation is over. They aren't going to confess. They don't have to. The evidence is in your bank account, or rather, what's missing from it. But knowing who did it is only half the battle. Now we have to figure out the verdict. I slap the case file shut. The dust flies up in the stagnant air of the precinct. I've laid it all out, the bodies, the weapons, the motives. The evidence is solid enough to put the whole system away for life. But we both know that's not going to happen. The judge. He's golfing with the defendants. The jury. They're too busy scrolling through social media to pay attention. The handcuffs stay on my belt. In this town, if you steal a loaf of bread, you go to jail. If you steal $1 trillion, you get a bailout. So here's the verdict: guilty on all counts. Grand larceny, fraud, negligence. But there will be no sentencing hearing. The suspects are going back to their penthouses to toast their success. The theft isn't stopping. It's becoming the law of the land. That leaves you standing there holding the bag. You can scream at the rain, you can demand justice, or you can accept the cold, hard truth. No one is coming to save you. The cavalry has been defunded. This isn't a nursery rhyme. It's a survival guide for a rigged game. If you want to make it out of this alleyway alive, you need to stop playing by the rules they wrote for you. Those rules were designed to keep you losing. First lesson of the street: cash is trash. I know your grandma told you to save your pennies. But in a world where they print money by the button push, your savings account is a leaking bucket. Holding cash is like holding an ice cube in a sauna. You have to think like the villains. They don't hoard paper. They hoard assets. Things that are real. Real estate, businesses, stocks, gold. You need to own a piece of the rock, not the paper receipt that claims you do. Second lesson: debt is a loaded gun. Most people point it at their own feet, buying cars they can't afford, clothes they don't need. That's consumer debt. That's the shackle. You have to learn how to aim that gun the other way. The rich use debt as leverage. They borrow cheap money to buy assets that pay them back. It's risky, sure, but working for 40 years hoping a pension will still be there. That's not just risky. It's reckless. Third lesson: loyalty is a lie. The company you work for. They'd replace you in a heartbeat if it saved them a nickel on the quarterly report. Stop acting like a family member and start acting like a mercenary. Your skills are your product. Sell them to the highest bidder. If you aren't learning, you're dying. The days of the company man are dead and buried right next to the middle class. You are your own CDO now. And don't look at the news for advice. The financial channels are just commercials for the casino. They want you emotional, scared, and trading. Turn off the noise. Look at the data. Follow the money, not the talking heads. You need to build a moat around your life. Multiple streams of income. If one dries up, you have another. Relying on a single paycheck is like driving a car with no spare tire on a road full of nails. This isn't about getting rich quick. It's about not getting poor slowly. It's about realizing that inflation is the tax you pay for not paying attention. You have to run just to stand still, so you better learn how to sprint. The gap is widening, kid. The middle is falling out. You're either going to be part of the ownership class, or you're going to be part of the rental class. There is no neutral ground anymore. Pick a side. It's a grim picture, I know. I didn't write the story. I just investigated it. But knowing the game is rigged is the first step to beating it. You can't win if you don't know who the opponent is. Now you see the invisible hand reaching for your pocket. You see the strings attached to the puppet show. It's ugly, but it's real. And reality is the only place you can build a foundation. I stand up and put on my trench coat. The investigation is officially closed. The file goes into the cold case archives, buried under mountains of red tape. But you've got the intel now. I walk to the door, the silhouette of the city framing the exit. It's still raining out there. The streets are slick and dangerous. The sharks are circling. Keep your eyes open, kid. It's a dark world out there.